A lot of it is learning how to lead a team, how to disciple, how to mentor, and really showing up for one, the ministry you're in charge of. But for me, it's connecting with the women too. So one huge thing for me in being over the ministry with my husband is connecting with the parents, never seeing someone as a number. I mean, that is something that I despise so much. And, it can really get blurred in the lines, I think, with church attendance and other things that people focus on. But for me, it's like, okay, but what's that mom's story? And is she a single mom? And does she have support? And like, what does she need? Maybe she just needs a friend, right? And she's just looking for somewhere that her kids just like going to church. So for me, I've just learned that relationships matter.
Yeah.
Being intentional and really just getting to know people, I think, is the biggest thing.
It's not going to change for women in a Christian community who are in leadership if we're not talking about these things. So this podcast is speaking true, vulnerable experiences where women really tried their best to show up well, even when they failed. And how do we extend grace in failures and mistakes, knowing that to be a leader and to be a woman in leadership is one of the hardest things, especially in the Christian community. This podcast is for women who are pastors, CEOs, ministry leaders, founders, and women serving within the fivefold who carry vision publicly and wrestle privately. As you listen, you will gain courage to confront your own story without shame, wisdom to strengthen your leadership, and clarity to rebuild with discernment, boundaries, and grace. You will not just hear testimony, you will receive language for your process, tools for healthier leadership, and the confidence to lead again without losing your soul. This is the Sword Grace Unscripted podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Sword Grace Unscripted. I have a guest with me. Her name is Liz Cruz, and we connected, it's been a couple months now, and I got to know a little bit of Liz's heart and the things that she is doing in her life. So I'm actually going to get you, Liz, to share with the women who are listening who you are and the things that you're carrying as well.
Yeah. Hi, Tina. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be on your podcast. So a little bit about myself. My name is Liz Cruz. I am a pastor's wife we are in Indiana, Northwest Indiana area. My husband is a youth and kids pastor. So we oversee kids ages from babies all the way to high school. And we've been doing that for almost, I want to say 9 years now, nearly the whole time that we've been married. My husband and I are also entrepreneurs, so we have our own businesses. I don't want to say our own, but businesses that we are creating together. And on top of that, we have 2 wonderful children, ages 3 and 5. So we have a lot going on top of everything else that we do in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, like you said, what are you carrying and having going on? A lot to juggle. Sometimes people literally look at me like I'm insane and don't understand. And then I even talked to someone yesterday. I was like, I'm considering homeschooling too while working full time. And they're like, yeah, I don't understand. You're incredible. You're crazy. So, there's a lot of layers, I think, to my life. And I hope that a lot of women today, when they're listening, can resonate with this.
Mm-hmm. Well, just even the fact of identifying that you're a pastor's wife, which sometimes we don't get the wives to pastors speaking about that role on the stuff that it is for you to take care of and to have to carry. And then, of course, if your husband is, and equally so yourself, carrying the weight of the next generation. And that's a lot, especially today in the way the world is going. And then also, Liz, you are a business owner. So yes, you are carrying a lot and you have children and wanting to homeschool. The biggest thing that stands out, I feel like there's this theme that what I hear is that I think for sometimes women, they feel like they can't do more than one thing. And here you are, you're doing more than one thing. And
Yeah.
people, it's like, am I feeling crazy? Wow, I think God gives capacity in order to do incredible things. So what it has been like for you to be a pastor's wife?
Wow. Yeah, I think like I said, there's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of dynamics you have to learn as a pastor's wife. I was a teenager, me and my husband were dating, and we really felt the call of ministry on our heart. And then we got married and immediately jumped into a ministry role, and some people may have said that was a lot for first getting married. But I will say there's just a lot that you learn, right? There's a lot of relationships you make. You learn about different boundaries, not that you're hiding who you are, but you understand how to speak to people in a different light and how to lead. I think that there's a lot of those types of themes and things that happen. A lot of it is learning how to lead a team, how to disciple, how to mentor, and really showing up for one, the ministry you're in charge of. But for me, it's connecting with the women too. So one huge thing for me in being over the ministry with my husband is connecting with the parents, never seeing someone as a number. I mean, that is something that I despise so much. And, it can really get blurred in the lines, I think, with church attendance and other things that people focus on. But for me, it's like, okay, but what's that mom's story? And is she a single mom? And does she have support? And like, what does she need? Maybe she just needs a friend, right? And she's just looking for somewhere that her kids just like going to church. So for me, I've just learned that relationships matter.
Yeah.
Being intentional and really just getting to know people, I think, is the biggest thing. I mean, in any type of ministry role, but as a pastor's wife specifically, they're looking to you. Again, it's not that it should be this way, but even on a pedestal sometimes, and sometimes people look at you as if you're above them or whatever. And there shouldn't be like that. But I think there's still this expectation of like, okay, so can I connect with her still, even though she is a pastor's wife or whatever
Yeah.
the case? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said to be intentional in relationships because as a pastor's wife, you're in this together. And even though you're leading in different ways, there is a leadership call for you to be invested in the relationship and being intentional. And Liz, the fact that you identified, this isn't about numbers. It speaks to God's heart, right? Because he goes after the one, and that you've taken that on in your own intentionality, say, how do I build those relationships, which really speaks to a lot of women in terms of the things that they're carrying. And it's such a good theme is that when we focus on the one, we lead differently.
Yeah.
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 So as you have, I'm curious then, as you've been leading with those intentional ways, and I'm going to say, yes, your husband is a pastor, but you're also in leadership as well. You're in leadership with, as you support your husband, you support the ministry, support the church. Has there been things that you've had to face together or as individuals that has been hard that maybe other women who are in similar roles need to hear so that they also feel seen?
Yeah, I will say too, a big part of my story that I haven't mentioned, is having health issues and different conditions. I always kind of had random health issues as a kid, things that would just be a nuisance, or I'd be like, oh, it's fine. You just kind of toss it up for it's not a big deal. But the older I've gotten, things that I've endured, then learning about different conditions. So to kind of summarize, after I had my son, I started having really weird health issues. He's almost 6 now. So this has been 6 years in the making. Started developing weird POTS-like symptoms. So people having tachycardia and blood pressure problems. My daughter was having skin issues. A lot of things were happening. We were in a place that unknowingly just had toxic mold. We were not aware. So it just affected us in so many ways, neurologically, internally, everything, anything you could think of, financially. And so going through that process, right, discovering you have health problems and going through the financial things and taking a new job. My husband was actually full-time at the church. He decided to go part-time and take on a full-time role. So he works outside the church plus his role, plus our businesses. We understand what it means to be in the trenches, I will say. And there's a lot of pastors and their wives in these situations where they're like, I want to homeschool my kids. I want to be able to do this. I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Maybe I'm going through something. And at the end of the day, God did not tell us so we were not going to have trials in our life, and our lives are not going to be perfect. And this is a learning process for myself, right? I was very angry and frustrated, like, why is this happening? I was kind of mourning my life before my illness, right? And things that have happened to me. Learning how to speak about the things that you deal with too, like not claiming, saying, well, I am this, right? I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with a chronic condition, but I still believe in the power and healing of Jesus, right? So understanding that too, but I think women can relate to that they feel like, well, I don't have enough faith, or people make me feel bad for being sick, and I can't operate in the same capacity as the pastor's wife that I know that's my friend. And I just want to say, like, don't put these expectations on yourself that God isn't putting on you, but you're putting on yourself because of what you foresee everyone else is saying about you.
Yeah.
Because you may be going through all these things, and really you just have to evaluate, like, what can I do? Right. And at the end of the day, we can't do anything in our own power. We have to rely on God, asking Him for strength to be able to get through situations. I literally had a friend who told me, like, I don't understand how you're getting through what you're going through, but I do know how. It's through literally the strength of God. Like, you
Yeah.
have the strength of the Lord. Like, that is how I'm seeing you go through and walk through this situation in your life. And so when you do that, people are encouraged by, even though you are facing this terrible situation or trial or whatever
Yeah.
you're going through, they can see that you are still acting out your faith, right?
Yeah.
Because even if the healing doesn't come, I'm going to worship Jesus. Even if, this situation doesn't change,
Yeah.
honoring Him through that. I think that's the biggest lesson I have learned. And, it is hard some days, and we, have to rely on Him. That's
Yeah. Liz, I love the theme of where you went. I actually think the Lord really wants to stay focused on that because, this podcast is to highlight women who are, leading businesses, ministries in any leadership capacity. And we all, as women, we all have a role in leadership, even as moms. And so whatever people identify, whatever women identify is the role of leadership they've taken on. But here's the thing that you've captured is that life still shows up. We're still faced with trials and tribulations. And sometimes those trials can be things thrown at your way, as you've identified, like chronic illness. And for some women, this it can be very destabilizing for women as they're trying to carry a business and children and ministry. But you've really identified like the fact that you have said, women wonder how you keep, people wonder how you keep showing up, and to speak to the Lord's strength in you and through you is how you keep showing up. I wonder then, as I see you like holding on to the Lord, it has not caused you to step away from the Lord, from what He's asking of you.
Yeah. No, I think that it would be foolish to do that, knowing everything that God's done in my life. Like that's the time you need God even more, right? In the times that you don't understand. And that's the point. God, I don't understand. I'm going to just lay this in your lap because I cannot do this. And I think about those who don't have Christ, or don't have, trust and belief in that this world is going to pass away, right? That this isn't forever. And when we get so focused on just the here and now, yeah, you can get caught up in everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just holding on to His promises is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. Holding on to His promises. Yeah. Especially when you're hit in ways that is unexpected. And I would imagine, of course, that being hit with not realizing there's mold and it's impacting your family. And that came as an unexpectation as you're trying to carry out, again, what the call is on your life and for your family and your children. And, I wonder too for women who might be listening to this, I really think that there is this vision of women who they're experiencing whatever chronic illness they're going through, and they've almost hit the pause button. And I almost want them to feel encouraged. And maybe there's something that you need to share, speak to these women that just feels like it feels really heavy in the spirit right now, that it's almost like the Lord is highlighting women who are going to the hospital, they're going to the doctor's appointment, they've had this vision, this call to do something. There's a ministry that's been planted, or they're working in something, but they feel like they just can't keep showing up.
Yeah, no, I can definitely speak to that because I've been there. I think it happens a few times a
Yeah.
week, right? A big part of my story too is I've always been a worshiper and a singer. That's something I'm so passionate about. And one thing I feel like illness and these things is trying to rob me of is my joy to do that. I helped out with a young adults event recently, and I was singing on stage, and then I had to get off the stage because my heart rate had got up to like 150 beats, and I was just like, I'm going to pass out. Like, something's going to happen to me. And I went off the stage, I'm drinking water, and I'm just angry almost, and I'm praying, and they're like all these young adults are here in the room, and they're worshiping God, and they're pouring their hearts out for the needs that they have. And I'm also here like, man, God, I also just want you to hear me and heal me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even if the healing doesn't come, right? Persevering through that. But there are days where you are going to feel like, God, I don't understand. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can go on. But this, like I said, this isn't forever, right?
No.
And we don't understand why we go through certain things. But I will say the people who are brought in your life, the testimony that you can share, those that you are called to help, specifically yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There may be another person who is dealing with chronic illness listening to this right now. And I pray that she understands to hold on, that she understands that she's not alone, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate we live in a broken world and a world with illness, and it continues to get worse and worse. But to understand that that's why we live as if life is short, because it is, right? And that's why we go back to living intentionally. So to not give up, right? Hold on to God says about you that this is not the end, right? And that joy comes in the morning, right? That God, He knows our beginning and our end, that
Yeah.
this is not forever. Um, like to really focus on Him. And I know that is so much more easier said than done,
Yeah.
but to truly understand that the suffering isn't forever.
No, that's
Um,
right.
yeah.
I am actually wondering, because I know some women are sitting here thinking, oh, I know, as we all do as Christians, we know all of the right things to say. We know of all the right principles and the Christianese. I actually wonder if you can share some of the practical things you do. Because Liz, as you've been walking through, carrying ministries, business, have chronic illness. And I know women are hearing all these things. They're studying the same Bible that we study. They have come under and they've recognized, yes, I need to worship. But what are some of the other practical things you do just to help carry you each day?
Yeah. I think honestly, being in constant communion with God, like
Yeah.
constant relationship and communication, like I just find myself praying or having these thoughts throughout the day, right? Where I'm always, me and the Holy Spirit are always just like, just always being in communication with God. I guess that's the biggest thing, because if you don't, you are going to get distracted, right? And by the enemy's lies and schemes, and everything is going to come at you, especially being a busy mom where you're taking care of the kids, you're getting them ready for school, or you're making lunch or doing whatever, your chores, and also working and doing all these things. It's very easy to get distracted. This is not a soundbite clip to insert, but there is a book that I'm reading. It's actually called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
That's so good.
I actually bought this because I'm the type of person who's always felt hurried in my life, always felt like I was in a rush ever since a
Yeah.
kid. I think it was just how I was raised. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to do that for my kids. I want them to understand to live a life intentionally and not feel like you have to be busy. Like the one thing I'm taking from this so far is, how are you? Someone asks you, right? And you say, I'm busy. Just
Mm-hmm.
busy. Like, why do we always want to carry this busyness?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
good.
it goes back to in every day of your life, be in constant communication with God. Understand you have to slow down. If you're feeling yourself getting anxious and worked up, like take that time to back up and say, I just need time to
Yeah.
pray. I just need time to be with Him. Even if it is, sometimes it's a sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Waking up earlier than your kids so you can just read a devotional, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's 5 minutes in the Bible app, that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you're on your drive to pick up for your kids and you're in the car and you can actually listen to your music. You can listen to worship music and praise God for 10 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are practical ways we can make sure God is constant throughout our day, rather than us feeling like we got through the whole day and we're like, well, what time did I give to God today?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there isn't a pressure to perform in that. I think we come back to, and I think one of the scriptures that many of us quote is to be still and know that I'm God. And that takes on a different experience for us as women. It doesn't mean there is a laziness or a not doing in that, but it's slowing down to understand that behind everything, God wants the best and that He wants to prosper and not harm. And when we understand being still and knowing that God is God, and that takes on a different flow, and being intentional within conversation, as you've identified, Liz, is that you're in constant communication with the Lord, and that doesn't escape. And I mean, even identifying that the Lord will do unique things in that conversation, right? He might lead you to a book to read. He might lead you to journal. He might lead you just to worship in order to realign your spirit with His. And it sounds like those are some of the practical things that you've been doing. Do you think we underestimate, just as I know that you are a worshiper, do you think we underestimate the power of worship in even our own homes?
Yeah, I think so, because I will say one testimony just from my own child. I mean, out of the mouths of your children, right?
Yes.
So my son, ever since he was the age of 2, he wanted to listen to Firm Foundation, right? The song, but specifically
Oh,
the version with Chandler Moore and Cody Carnes.
I g
Um, he loved their
Yep.
version, the 8-minute song every night. So we have been doing that song together every single night since he was 2 years old, and he's almost 6. Like, I kid you not, maybe we've missed 1 or 2 days in those 900,000 days, whatever.
Days.
He wants to do that song every night. That is the last song we do. We do a series of songs. It's a long playlist now, but that's the last one. And I remember when we were in the middle of that situation and we were finding out about the mold and we were going through this in the beginning trenches. And I was like, wow, God, this reminder of my child, it just makes you so emotional. Like, that He is like speaking to me through my child to tell me God is our firm foundation. It does not matter if our house has mold, mommy. It does not matter if this house that we think is our secure and our stability place that
Yeah.
we're supposed to be, it's okay, because God's going to provide, that He's going to take care of us as long
Mhm.
as we make Him the foundation of our life. And I think that's the biggest thing, even as a Christian who may have been a Christian your whole life, you serve in
Mhm.
ministry, we still need those reminders.
Yeah.
And that goes even to, like you just said, the power of worship in your home
Yeah.
and the reminders that you need every day to rely on God and make sure He is the foundation, because we can get very distracted, going back
Mhm.
to busyness, being busy for God instead of being with God. That is a big thing when going into last year, where I was like, God, I don't want to just be busy for you. I want to
No.
say no to things that are not for me, that are not meant for me to do. And I want to be able to be in your presence more. I don't want
Mhm.
to just be in who I'm supposed to be with you, not busy, because we have all these titles, but
Yeah.
understanding the balance between it all.
Yeah, that's so good. That is so good. Being busy for the sake of being busy doesn't mean that we're capturing what God has intended for our lives. And I think for some women out there, they're being busy and they're wondering, is there fruit in this busyness? Well, that's tricky when there might be things that you're doing that God doesn't want you to do. And you won't know that until you're still before Him and wrestling this out with Him and talking with Him and communing with Him throughout all of it. And so, Liz, as you've been, having to walk through, this difficult season, I know that you're also have a ministry as well, your business. And I wonder, because I know women are listening, and there is this constant theme is that as women are showing up for the kingdom of God and doing work in the kingdom, there's still things happening. And we sometimes we start with the things that are happening as individuals in your personal life, but you keep showing up for the kingdom as well. Because even as we started this episode on Sword and Grace, is that you talked about how much you keep persevering because the Lord is who, as you continue to commune with Him, He is what gives you strength to keep showing up. So I'm wondering if you can share with women some of the ministries that you are doing. So yes, you're a pastor's wife, but I know that you're doing so much more than that as well.
Yeah, being on this podcast and putting myself out there more, I'm like, man, I'm not doing enough. That's always my back of my mind. Like, I
I
need to be showing up more.
Yeah.
So I have an account I started. It was really just out of a place of wanting to serve and help. It started as a small group Bible study during COVID, during like 2020. When my son was born, I started it online on Facebook, and I still have it today. It's open. The group is there. It's free to join, but I just haven't been doing them in a while. But I will say that literally brought so much community for women. So having an online Bible study option, because we weren't able to join in person. And then on top of that, posting content that was about biblical encouragement, right? Or worship. I would do some songs or whatever the case, but having that ministry and outlet to be able to just reach the person who's struggling, and I want to use that as more of a platform, even just sharing my own journey, which I have been quiet more this last year and a half or so, but being able to share that more. So I can absolutely share those links so you can share with your audience, but just being able to offer resources, right? I've
Mhm.
created prayer journals, and I'm contemplating a devotional, just resources for women, Christian women who are like, I just need something to be able to, fill my spirit, because sometimes we're
Right.
not putting ourselves, not that we have to put ourselves first, but like we still need to take care of ourselves, or we can't take care of anyone else. Can't take care of your
Yeah.
husband or the ministry or your kids if you don't fill your own spirit. So doing that. And then another layer of that is my marketing business. So being able to help business owners, right? They're
Mhm.
stressed, they're burnt out, but being able to alleviate a part of their business because it's not something that they got into their industry for in the first place. So with that, I work with various different business owners across the US and Canada at this point. But being able to offer those services, it's like God gave me this brain with a bunch of stuff going on in it. So I'm just going to use it for his glory, and
Oh, that's so good. Well, and that's why I wanted to capture you started off as I'm a pastor's wife, I'm a mom, and the intentionality. And this is just another layer that I knew that you are also doing. You have your own business and individuality and what God has called you to do. And you're stewarding the kingdom in this way as well, which also is hard. So you have many hats. And that's why what I want women to hear is that as you are operating in these many hats, there is a theme that I keep hearing for you and for many women is your presence in having a posture before the Lord is what allows you to carry all of the things that you're carrying in your life, whether it's chronic illness, whether it's a mom, as a wife, as a pastor's wife, as a ministry leader, as you worship, as you carry a business hat too, is that Liz, I think it's so interesting how this episode started was the intentionality. There's that theme, intentionality around what you're doing with others, but you're also very intentional with the Lord too, is what's helping you weather all of the things that have been thrown your way and the hats that you carry. And I know that there's women who are wanting to manage and carry many things at the same time, but their exhaustion is set in. And I hope that what women hear in what you're sharing is that sometimes pausing is pausing in the rest, not pausing in what you're doing for the Lord. That's not what it's about. It's that you've really spoke that theme around the intentionality piece.
Yeah, I definitely think I just hear a song that's on the radio, so it goes like, hold on just a little bit longer. I don't know who it's by, but yeah, I think it just goes on to holding on to
Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I mean, if you're not holding on to him, then everything will feel shaky, right? Going back to that foundation, just understanding like, Lord, you're going to be the foundation of everything I do, and it's not going to be perfect in my life to understand that, but just knowing if I put everything before you, you will
Mhm.
honor it. That I
Yeah.
know that, hey, even my business, if I lose a client and I'm stressed out about what's going to happen next month, you are going to provide. That is something my husband has to remind me of all the time. I feel this
Oh,
overwhelmingness because I'm like, we have so much debt. I had all this medical expenses. And
Yeah.
he's like, you worry so much about money. And I'm like, I do. And my husband is so solid in his faith to be like, yeah, well, God's going to take care of us. And
Yeah.
he has. He has every single time, to the point where, I mean, we were overdrafting in our accounts and it didn't even make sense. And we were so stressed out living in my parents' house, right?
Mhm.
And then now we're able to rent. We have a beautiful place we're renting from a friend who we weren't even looking for a place, and I just seen the post and she was like, do you know someone who's looking? She messaged me and I was like, yeah, maybe. And it's funny to think that we could barely afford what we were doing, and then we get a rent for a place, and we've been able to afford living in that place since we've moved into it. So just really looking at how God provides overall.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to make sense because it's not going to for us.
no. And God's faithfulness and trusting Him and that constant reminder to stay anchored in no matter what you're doing and caring, both personally, professionally, leadership, ministry, whatever we want to name, is that staying anchored in Him because it is easy to get lost in the sorrows and sufferings of today. And that can be hard. And that's what the enemy wants, right? He wants
Yeah.
us to be distracted and to take us away or out of whether it's a call for your marriage, a call as individuals. I'm wondering if you can just speak to, there might be one woman out there right now who is feeling the weight of all that's happening and maybe some encouragement through you speaking to her right now.
Yeah. I would say just remember the friend you have in Jesus, and understand to be in constant communion and communication with him so that he can give you the strength that you do not have. You cannot do in your own power.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is finding that community outside of yourself and your
That's really
family
good.
and your husband. Obviously, you have a community here. You're welcome to be a part of mine. Tina is building a community of wonderful women here. And so just understanding that you're not alone. I think a lot of times we like to isolate ourselves, but God did not call us to be alone. And that means even with our friendships, we need other people
Yeah.
to sharpen us, right? Iron sharpens iron. So to understand that we need to be poured into, allow yourself to be poured into, allow yourself to be uncomfortable, to meet those
Mhm.
other women and talk to someone about where you're at. And then the last thing I'll say is to really just remember to pour into yourself, to not forget who you are, being a mom, being a wife, being very busy. You're not just a pastor's wife. You are who God has called you
That's
to be.
so good.
You have an individual identity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is so good. You have an identity that's outside of your husband's role as a pastor. God has called all of his daughters to do incredible, great things for the kingdom. I also love that you captured Liz community. Can't speak enough about women building healthy, safe communities with other women so that they can hold each other up, especially when life is hard. So thank you for naming that and speaking that out for women who might be isolating themselves in this time. Many women in leadership who are doing incredible things for the kingdom, but they are overperforming and overworking and not have lost a lot of their community. And they need to build healthy communities in order to continue to steward. So it has been a blessing and an honor to have you on Sword and Grace Unscripted. Thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was such a blessing for myself too. So I really needed this to be able to chat through this. This was good and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad. Thank
Yes.
you, everybody, for joining us on Sword and Grace.